also, this is another thing is like, why have I sat back for all of this time and just allowed everybody to lie about how much they were getting paid? That's one thing I've been thinking about is like, why did I just allow everybody to sort of run with these crazy narratives? I just want to make one thing clear. I have never had anyone in terms of on-air talent getting paid six figures a year. And I see this constantly, like as if this is like a real thing. I'm not putting out names or anything, and I'm not saying that I haven't paid people the equivalent of six figures a year, because there have been people on this platform that I've had sort of more like profit sharing arrangements with, and those people are going viral. Obviously, I'm talking about Sharp. Sharp's made, you know, somewhat outlandish amounts of money at times on this channel. But it's like there's people on one side of the fence who are exaggerating how much they're getting paid in order to look good, I guess, on camera. And I you know, I don't even have an issue with that, because this is hip hop or whatever. Fake it till you make it, or not fake it, but like, you know, act like you're doing better than you really are. That's totally fine. Normally, I would think, I just kind of accepted that. But the reality is that there's been a lot of people sort of making it sound like they got paid a lot more than they did. And then you also have somebody like T-Rell who's making it sound like he got paid a lot less than he did. Let's do some numbers. He said that he was getting paid $300 per piece of content. Now, you remember at one time he was doing the Wednesday show, he was doing like the news a couple times, and he was doing a couple of interviews per week, right? So if you take that and you take 5 times 300, you have $1,500 a week, plus the fact that he was getting cut in on the brand deal, or the advertisements that were on at the end of the day, which for us, we've always kind of given a very significant percentage of the ad reads to the hosts who are, you know, administrating it or whatever. I mean, I could maybe ask Josh if we really wanted to get down to it, but the reality is that it was, you know, T-Rell was like very easily earning like, you know, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, et cetera, per month as a result of doing content. Now, granted, he was doing a good amount of content. Doing like 5 pieces of content per week is pretty significant. But, you know, that's without having to ask for a raise. That's without ever trying to have a conversation with us. So, you know, I felt like that was actually pretty appropriate, given the fact that on a lot of the content that was being made in these situations, it's like we are not exactly raking in cash. And they know that, because when you do a podcast live stream on No Jumper, and for some reason everybody wants to paint this as if this is like mean for me to say, or this is unappreciative for me to say, but the reality is that all these guys who left, they all are completely familiar with how much you get paid from live streaming. And I've had that conversation with different people. There were some people on one of these guys' podcasts who had to leave, and those guys left because they were asking for money. And the reality is that you just don't make that much money from doing live stream podcast type content on YouTube. And that's okay, because for many years prior to right now, I was essentially taking a loss by supporting a whole bunch of different hosts on the channel because of the fact that I believed in it long term. And so, I don't know, like when I think about the fans at home, or I think about the average person in media, if you were to get offered, you know, $70,000, $80,000 a year or something like that, maybe up to like $100,000 realistically, especially, and without even having to ask for a raise, if I were to offer that to somebody, I feel like every person watching this, as well as like the, 90% of people working in media, would hear that number and be like, oh, I could get paid that much to be in the office like 2 days a week for like 5 or 6 hours per day. I don't really think that that's that offensive. But then when you come down to like, oh, $300 per appearance, that sounds bad. So that's what everybody's saying. Nobody's talking about the fact that this was like a person who was doing a lot of content on the channel at a certain point.
Yes.
And the thing about that is that it's like, this is kind of the overall thing that I was getting sick of towards the end of a lot of what was going on, is the fact that people were so comfortable putting these bullshit narratives out there, in particular ones that made me look bad. And meanwhile, I'm just sitting back and just looking at it and seeing everybody. The reality is everybody's like, why didn't you put T-Rell on a contract? And keep in mind, I was letting him do whatever he wanted outside of No Jumper. I wasn't trying to have any kind of control over the fact that he was streaming on his own or whatever. A non-exclusive deal where you're getting paid that significant of an amount of money where you then get to go home and talk about whatever the fuck you talked about on No Jumper on your own shit. I'm not really buying the idea that this was not generous, because I've already painted the picture about the fact that I was essentially taking a loss on a lot of the content. People choose to hear that and just read into it and be like, oh, that's offensive. That's mean. You didn't appreciate them. No, I'm being honest with you. And you know the fucking numbers because they're transparent. You guys are making the same amount. That what I'm talking about, that $70,000, $80,000, $100,000, whatever it might have ended up being based on how much shit he was doing, they left, or T-Rell specifically, he left that to go do their own podcast, split 4 ways. So, if I had to guess, I would say that, an average episode makes $400, $500, $600. Maybe you kill it that month or that week and you make $1,000. So, I'm not trying to say that like them doing their own independent thing is a bad idea or whatever, because if they wanted to do that, I support them. But you are talking about swapping out maybe making $100,000 a year for maybe making like $200 a week. Because now you're actually earning the amount that content earns and splitting it up evenly. Whereas before, you had this fucking white guy benefactor who was just artificially amplifying the price for that kind of content because we enjoyed having it on the channel. And, we were trying to make it work. And, T-Rell is someone who, if he had came to me and said, hey, I want to get on a contract and I want to get paid X amount of dollars, I would have been 100% open to that conversation. Even right before he left the platform, I remember we were having a conversation on his channel where he was talking about Lush. And he kind of said something about how he felt like he should have been getting paid more. And you go listen to how I responded to it. I was 100% open to it because I realized that he was a valuable part of the operation. And I felt like, if he wanted to have that conversation, if he wanted to get on a consistent contract, he would just ask me. And it's crazy because the other day, I don't even know that much about these guys, but I know that like MacWap is like one of their friends or whatever. And I just seen a clip of them talking about it. And they totally agreed with me. They were like, yeah, like if he wanted to get paid more, he should have asked him. And I'm like, why am I watching your friends who don't even know me, or I'm pretty sure they talk shit about me or whatever. I don't pay that much attention, but why am I watching them totally get it while I'm watching a 30-minute clip that you made with bullet holes in the thumbnail of you just like intentionally pretending like you made a good move, like as if it was a really brilliant genius business move to quit before you saw how much money you could potentially get paid. I don't know. I just feel kind of baffled by that whole thing.